Welcome to Sheila's Concrete Garden and Sheila's Microgreen Garden. If you aren't familiar with microgreens, they are similar to sprouts. However, they are grown for their first set of leaves called cotyledons. They're really baby plants and can be grown in 1 or 2 weeks with just window light or regular household LED lighting. They are said to be 40 times more nutritious than the full-grown plant. You may have seen them on your dish in a restaurant or for sale in a grocery store or farmer's market for $2 or more per ounce. These can be grown much more inexpensively at home. They're not only great as a topping for tossed salads and fruit salads, but also give extra flavor and crunch to a sandwich, pizza, or an omelet. And they make fancy toppings for appetizers. They can even go into your favorite smoothie or made into pesto. I became interested in growing food indoors in the winter of 2020 when I started growing lettuce hydroponically. I first heard about microgreens on a podcast by Peter Burke and wanted to add even more healthy greens that I could grow myself. So I looked at a lot of YouTube videos and experimented with plastic takeout containers. I had some success, but I wanted something that would look a little more decorative indoors and also fit on a kitchen windowsill. Since I already make and sell hypertufa troughs and have had success with growing herbs in those, I thought they would work beautifully for microgreens. I make my hypertufa with a mixture of perlite, sand, and coconut coir, which are components of most potting soil, with the addition of Portland cement. Hypertufa is porous and holds water well, which is great for growing microgreens, and it is heavy enough not to tip over on a windowsill. I created the small trough for a standard windowsill, and I developed a larger one for table or countertop use. Kits come with a cement dish, a starter supply of coconut coir pellets, and a blackout lid. Coconut coir is made from the fibers of coconut shell and is great at retaining water. Larger amounts can be purchased as a brick or small sheet of dehydrated coir for easy storage. It's easily rehydrated by adding water and will expand to 4 times in size. I follow the advice from the rustedgarden.com and use boiling water to kill off any potential fungus gnat eggs. Microgreens can be grown from seeds purchased online for microgreen use, which contain many more seeds than a regular seed packet from the garden center. I have found that purchasing some types from the grocery store work just as well and are 4 times cheaper. For this tutorial, I will be demonstrating the growing process for 4 different types of seeds. First are mucilaginous seeds, such as chia and basil. These are extremely tiny and are created to surround themselves with a gel-like substance which makes them stay very hydrated and therefore not needing a lot of extra water. They will even grow on a wet paper towel. Who knew all of those chia pets were actually microgreen planters? You may have some chia seeds in your pantry, and these are a great microgreen to start out with. I place a small square of paper towel over the drainage hole to prevent the coir from seeping out. Hydrate the coir by pouring boiling water over it. Because they're so tiny, it's best to keep chia seeds in a spice shaker and just sprinkle the seeds out onto the soil. They then give a spray of filtered water. Because they can easily mold, it's best to just sit the trough uncovered in a pantry or kitchen cabinet in the dark for 2 to 3 days until they start sprouting. In case your home is really dry, you may need to spray them with some water once or twice. Once they start sprouting, they will appear yellow, but once they're placed in the window, they'll quickly green up. The tiny hairs you may notice are roots and are not mold. The only maintenance is just to add water, usually morning and evening, to the bottom tray, but never on the top. The trough and quar will draw up water as needed to keep the greens hydrated. Chia can be harvested in a week, and I find it's best just to turn it over on the side, since they're so tiny, and trim them right off into a dish. They can be kept in the refrigerator for a few days. Just don't rinse them until ready to use. I really think chia look cute as appetizer toppings. Next are the brassicas, which include radish, mustard, broccoli, and cabbage. These seeds are a little bit larger, but still are able to be directly sown on top of the soil. These seeds need to be purchased as microgreen seeds from companies like Trough Market. If you want to experiment, you can certainly buy a package of seeds from your local garden center to try out first. Radish are one of my favorites because they actually taste like a radish and add a lot of spice to sandwiches and salads. These shown from Trough Market are a mix called colorful radish. You'll only need a teaspoon for the small trough and about 1/8 of a cup for the larger. These can be planted fairly close together, but just make sure you have a single layer. And once again, spray the top with water. The difference in planting these is that you'll add a blackout cover over the top to keep moisture in and to simulate the seeds being covered with soil. In a couple of days, you'll start to see small roots searching for soil and the root hairs developing. Once the lid starts rising up a ½ inch or so, that will mean it's time to remove it and reveal the little sprouts. Radish are usually ready to harvest after a week. I like to use the cut and come again method since some will continue to grow. Radish microgreens are very healthy and can also add an extra kick to salads and sandwiches. Another favorite are sunflowers, which take a little extra work but are very rewarding because of their size and crunch. I have purchased microgreen black oil sunflower seed, but have also just used birdseed, which is about 4 times cheaper. I really haven't found a lot of difference in the two. Commercial microgreen growers will tell you you need to use microgreen seed, but for home use, I don't see a problem with using birdseed. I do spray it with hydrogen peroxide and rinse really well, picking out any stem pieces that may be mixed in. Because of the hard shell, sunflower seed needs to be soaked to aid germination. For the small trough shown here, you would again use about a teaspoon of seed soaked in water for about 6 hours. Once soaked, they can just be spread out evenly over the top of the soil. Spritz with water again and cover. It's helpful to place a weight over the top with these larger seeds to force them to make stronger roots. I use a jar for the smaller troughs. Amazingly, the seedlings can push up against the weight, and after only 2 or 3 days, you'll be able to feel the sprouts underneath the lid and remove it. I like to leave them in the dark or dim light a little while longer before they go into the sunlight. Sunflowers grow pretty rapidly, and after only about 7 or 8 days they can be harvested. I've experimented with covering the seed with soil to help with removing the hulls, but that only ended up making a mess and causing uneven sprouting. If you wish, you can carefully remove the hulls off the leaves, but they will fall off on their own. You can tell they're ready to harvest when they start flopping over. I usually harvest the whole amount. Sometimes I leave the smaller sprouts for a few more days. And now it's time for a sunflower smoothie. Legumes like lentils, peas, and beans are great in salads or added to cooked dishes. Because of their size, they need a little longer soaking time. I have used microgreen seeds, but really have found no difference in those legumes purchased from the grocery store. I do try and buy organic. I will demonstrate the soaking process with mung beans, which can be found at Asian groceries. Because legumes expand when soaked, you only need a small teaspoon for the small trough and a couple of tablespoons for the large. They need to be soaked similarly to sunflowers for about 6 hours. You may see online being told to soak them for 24 hours, but I have found this turns them to mush. I follow True Leaf Market's advice, and after the initial soak, rinse them off. Then cover and let them just sit, rinsing a couple of times during a 12 to 18 hour period. I did go back and rescue the beans that fell in the jar. This keeps them hydrated enough to start sprouting, as you will see from the beans on the left. Lentils can be soaked with the same method. Because of their size, peas may require a little bit longer rinsing time, up to 24 hours. Your own home conditions may affect the amount of time needed before sprouts start appearing. Peas also grow rapidly and benefit from having a weight added to the top of the blackout lid. By day 10 or 11, they're ready to be harvested. I sometimes trim them off just above the bottom set of leaves, and they will actually grow over another week's time for a second harvest. and that was enough to make some pesto. Once you've harvested your microgreens, you can toss the leftover stems and roots and coir into the compost. But I have found coconut coir can be reused with a little effort. Once I've removed most of the stems and roots, I just place the coir on a tray, spray with hydrogen peroxide, and then place it in a 180-degree Fahrenheit oven for 30 minutes to 1 hour, depending on the amount. However, I would recommend not using a convection oven as it will spray the granules all over the place. Also, make sure your family knows these are not brownie crumbs. Once it's dry, I just put it in a colander, which seems to be the right hole size to sift out any leftover dried seeds or roots that didn't compost down. I wash the trough by rinsing and then scrubbing with a bottle brush, or you could use a toothbrush. Then I also spray it with hydrogen peroxide. For photography purposes, I used additional lighting from most of the photographs shown in this video. This photo shows the actual light that the sunflowers received from my south-facing window. The 3 troughs in the kitchen window work well for rotational planting, so I always have some greens ready to harvest. My kitchen window faces west and sometimes gets additional light from the overhead light, especially on cloudy days and in the evening. I hope this video has piqued your interest in growing your own food right in your kitchen. If you'd like a more extensive list of microgreen types, their nutritional value, and growing conditions, I highly recommend the website microveggie.com. If you'd like some more information on purchasing my Microgreen Trough kits, you can find out all about them on my website, sheilasconcretegarden.com. Thanks for watching, and may microgreens bring much joy and health to your home.